Well, Ukraine preparing to declare a state of emergency for the next 30 days as Russia invades two of those eastern territories. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also now dealing with a new wave of cyber attacks against his country. Zelensky, during his meeting with Polish and Lithuanian counterparts, telling the world that his army is, quote, ready for anything. Yeah.
And John, Russia has amassed more than 190,000 troops along the Ukrainian border, as you see here. These are brand new satellite images from Maxar Technologies, really showing this military buildup there. Of course, all of this as today more countries are piling sanctions onto Russian banks and Putin's inner circle. Now, President Biden has no events on the schedule today, but he's still reportedly considering sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, we're hearing. He is also sending more troops into Eastern Europe to back up the NATO allies. For the very latest, we want to go to our congressional correspondent, Kilmeny Dukart, covering the White House for us this week. So, Kilmeny, no public events, but what are we expecting from the Biden administration today?
Bianca, John, good to be with you. The White House Deputy National Security Advisor is warning that more sanctions could come at any moment, regardless of whether Russia takes more aggressive action in Ukraine. Dileep Singh has been defending that first round of sanctions implemented by the Biden administration amid criticism that it just didn't go far enough. Let's break that down for our viewers first. They've sanctioned two major financial institutions aimed at impairing Russia's ability to finance its defense contract and raise new funds to finance its military operations. The second hits at Russia's elite, including the director of the Federal Security Service, Russia's former prime minister, and more. And the third would cut Russia's sovereign debt off from Western financing, but it would only apply to debt after March 1st. It impairs their ability to raise money to finance a further invasion. We know Republicans have been critical of this, saying that it doesn't go far enough. Republican Florida Senator Marco Rubio tweeting this: "We should have sanctioned Esper Bank and VTB Bank last night in the middle of Putin's speech. We're wasting time on incremental and symbolic sanctions when we know for a fact he has made an irreversible decision on Ukraine and is already executing the plan." We mentioned earlier, John and Bianca, that Singh has been defending these sanctions. He called them hard-hitting, and he also said that what it represents, those two large financial institutions, is $750 billion in assets under their management. That is significant, but again, criticisms that this doesn't go far enough. There are new reports, as you mentioned at the top there, that the Biden administration could sanction businesses associated with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, the Attorney General itself and its CEO. But we are expecting to get an update in the White House press briefing slated for 2:30 p.m. Eastern in just a little over an hour from now.
All right, Kilmeny Dukart, we know you're watching all that for us. We appreciate that live update. Thank you.
Defending freedom will have cost for us as well, and here at home. We need to be honest about that. But as we do this, I'm going to take robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy, not ours.
So will that actually happen? President Biden promising to limit the impact that these Russian sanctions will have on your wallet. The president acknowledged Americans will likely see rising prices at the pump in the coming months. But how he plans to limit the rest of this, well, that remains to be seen. Let's welcome in now former Pennsylvania Congressman Lou Barletta. He's now running for governor in Pennsylvania. It's great to have you with us, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You know, I know, the governor of Pennsylvania isn't always dealing with major national security issues, but of course, this is a Main Street issue as well. Especially, we've already seen the rise of gas, inflation as well under President Biden. What do you expect to happen here now after these sanctions, and how do you think this is going to affect the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, I think it's going to affect not only the state of Pennsylvania, but people across the country. Energy production is a national security issue. And right here in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania can be a global leader in energy production. Back in December, while Putin was amassing troops at the Ukraine border, President Biden was lobbying senators against the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Pennsylvania could be, and the United States could be supplying energy to Europe, and instead, Russia was making $1 billion a day, replacing our energy with theirs. So This will affect us. It's going to affect us again at the gas pumps. Every product in this country, the only thing that's not delivered by a truck is a baby. So every product is going to be affected by the increase of gas prices.
It's true. I mean, Pennsylvania, obviously a source of natural gas, has benefited greatly from the fracking revolution. The steel industry is so quintessential to that as well. We've also seen the American public responding to this commander-in-chief's foreign policy. He's 20 points underwater on the issue of Russia and Ukraine, according to the latest Gallup tracking poll. Just 36% of Americans approve of how he's handling this crisis. 55% disapprove. And I think it's interesting that when you look at the overall job President Biden is doing, the 55% number on the Ukraine crisis matches his overall disapproval number.
I'd like to know who the 41% is that approves of how he's handling this. This never would have happened under President Trump. We all know that. We had a strong, he led by strength, and Joe Biden is leading by showing our weaknesses, and these countries are taking advantage of it. I mean, it's not going to be a surprise that China will follow, taking advantage of a weak president.
I'm being told that most of the 41% are actually members of the White House press corps. I joke, of course. The White House just expects everyone that will fight for their American values. We've heard this from the president, from Jen Psaki, also from the vice president. Here is the White House press secretary yesterday.
Why does that matter to the American people? That should matter because that is a fundamental value that we as a country stand up for, and we stand up against that type of action. That goes back to World War II. When the president spoke to the American people last week, it was very important to him to be very direct and clear and straightforward with them about what this could mean. As we looked to what the impact of an invasion could mean, and also what the impact of sanctions could mean. And the fact that standing up for values is not without cost. This is about standing up for American values and he wanted to make clear to them what impact that could have.
So they're trying to rally us now to stand up for these traditional American values that we've been upholding since World War II. When reality is, Lou, you know this, they've been trying to tear down these traditional American values, the things that have unified us as a nation for years. And the Democrats haven't supported any of this. And now all of a sudden we're supposed to just get on board with what they want us to do?
The whole idea of family and God, I mean, they've been trying to eliminate all that from our lives. For goodness sakes, we have boys playing girls' sports right now, beating girls at sports. You want to talk about traditional values? Yeah. They don't know what that means.
Yeah. We also can't forget about those sweetheart deals with Ukrainian and Chinese companies for the president's son. The list goes on and on. Do you think, I mean, this is something that's just kind of, I think we're all lost in the forest for the trees here, but President Biden seems pretty compromised on the issue of Ukraine. What do you think?
Well, absolutely, and we knew that going in, that was going to happen. Not only with Russia and Ukraine, but also with China as well. Russia and China, the two countries that, besides Iran, who he also caved into under the Obama administration. But how do you play tough with China when you were getting contracts and the money that the family was making with China? And the same goes with Russia. We knew that going in. Unfortunately, now we're going to actually see it play out.
Well, Pennsylvania is a fascinating state. A commonwealth, I think, is officially what Pennsylvania is. But we look forward to talking to you again, Lou Barletta, and good luck on your run for governor there.
Follow me at loubarletta.com. Thank you.
Thank you.